Hello and welcome to Stay Paid, the sales and marketing podcast from Reminder Media, on a mission to help you close more deals and retain more business so you can live a life of freedom tomorrow, but only if you take action today. My name is Joshua Stike, and I am joined by a guy who's checking his Instagram right now.
Checking my phone as always. I don't have as many notifications going off as our, guest here today because I'm not as popular. But my email, dude.
Luke Acree, by the way.
Yes, Luke Acree. I was supposed to say my name.
Yeah.
But my email, I don't know if you guys experience this, but man, my email is killing me these days. I'm sitting back there because I'm in our finance department working on some things, and it's just ding, ding, ding.
The average
ding.
office worker gets 122 emails a day.
Well, and maybe we'll talk about this on the podcast because I'm always interested to how people do their marketing, how they structure their day. But it has gotten to the point where I'm missing important emails.
Yeah.
Because of all the emails I get. But anyways.
No.
So that's how I'm feeling today, ladies and gentlemen. That's how I'm feeling.
Well, before we jump into today's interview, our theme this week on our blogs and on social media is all about video marketing. So if you're thinking of or have already gotten into video, going live on social media is a great way to incorporate your personality into your marketing and branding. So check out Reminder Media's Facebook page this week to get a free checklist of all the things to do before going live on social media.
It's thebomb.com, people.
That's not a real site.
Oh, that's not. Okay, don't go to that site.
It's ReminderMedia.com.
ReminderMedia.com, that's what it is.
But that would come in handy for you, I think, going live on. If you're not following Luke on Instagram, it's at Luke Acree. He's going live, doing secret lives.
Yes.
On Instagram, right?
Yes. Last name is spelled Acree. So Acre with an extra E for all you real estate agents out there. Luke Acree.
Our guest today is Dex Lipovic. He is originally from Southern California and later moved to New York City, where you might know him better as Dex and the City. He is a leading Manhattan real estate broker and has been featured on episodes of $1 Million Listing New York, as well as appearing on the cover of the Wall Street Journal. Dex, welcome to the podcast.
Having me, it's a pleasure to be here. I've been a fan of the show, and ever since meeting Luke earlier in the year, I've been super excited to connect with him on this podcast. Thanks so much for having me.
No, man, it's awesome to have you guys. I actually met Dex at the Disruptor conference, so I was able to hear him speak there, and super excited to have you on because I always love it when I find people who are practicing in the business. They're very successful, and Cena, the guy that put on the Disruptor conference, one of the things that I admired so much about the people he chose, and obviously he chose me, but which I felt humble because I'm probably not this person. But Dex is actually a practicing real estate professional, but at the same time is really an expert and has become an expert in his marketing and growing his business, especially through things like social media and using technology to empower his business. So I'm super excited to kind of get into the nitty-gritty details of how you've done that successfully, especially where you're at in New York City, where this is super competitive to try to break into. And I'm curious to hear how you did it, because I know that will be relevant to all the agents that are listening to this. But Dex, if you could kind of introduce yourself to our audience, I ask everybody, give kind of the Cliff Notes version of your life. Tell us, how you've gotten to the point you are today. Why'd you get into real estate? So could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So born and raised in Orange County, California, a small town by the name of Dana Point. Lived there for about 19 years and grew up in a pretty competitive sports environment, right? So competition was always part of my life early on. Played basketball and volleyball. That was basically my entire life, eating, breathing, and sleeping that, up until high school and early college days, where I suffered some injuries. But injuries are basically nothing for me. I'm actually doing this podcast right now with a partially torn ACL. We'll get into that later.
Dude, I was supposed to get an MRI. Sorry to cut your story off. This is a terrible podcast. But I literally was supposed to get an MRI literally 2 days ago, and I missed the appointment. So I'm right there with you, brother. I actually have a torn. They told me they think my ACL is gone.
All those days in the gym. I told you 5 days is too much.
We're gonna do a quick tangent. I'll go back since we're on the topic of injuries and you brought it up. Tore my Achilles, fractured my skull, the bridge of my nose right here playing basketball. 2 knee surgeries, meniscus and MCL, severe spinal injury, and then now tore my shoulder. And then now I'm doing the ACL. So recovering from that.
And now you got into real estate.
You're $1 million man now.
Well, half those injuries were suffered during my real estate career, but we'll get into that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So my second year in the business, 9 months out of that year were done on crutches, Ubering everywhere. I couldn't walk anywhere. And most of my showings were done on crutches, which is pretty awesome.
Dude, talk about perseverance.
Getting back into it. The dream of like playing in the NBA, college basketball, that stuff sort of died with, the early injuries. Still love basketball, but you couldn't pay me to get back on a basketball court just because missing my actual real estate career isn't worth it. But I do miss that aspect. Still a huge basketball fan. In terms of moving to New York, it was always my dream, right? And when I get fixated on a target, that's really all I want, all I focus on, and all I make my actions go towards, right? And so moved to New York City at an early age of 19 to attend Fordham University. And then once I graduated here, it was no question that I was going to stay, right? It didn't really matter what I was going to do. It was more of just always staying in New York because that was always my dream from the time I was like 13. So I did a quick little stint in order to stay here because my sphere of influence at that time wasn't that large outside of, let's say, people of my age demographic, but worked at Xerox for 9 months and right out of college, right, and sold software there. And I quickly found out I was pretty good at sales because I hit 621% of my yearly quota.
Oh my goodness.
By March.
So what you do the rest of the time? Just relax?
Well, within 9 months, like I knew that I had outgrown that. And right around the time, that was like season 2 of $1 Million Listing, right? So I'd already kind of watched it a little bit and toyed with it, but I was like, damn, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Right? I want to do that. So it sounds pretty cheesy, but that's actually really why I got in. I kind of come from a real estate background. My dad was doing it. And I like to tell people I've been involved in real estate since I was 12 out in California, just because Eastern European father had me kind of go out in the field working with him and seeing kind of the process. So the passion for it's always really been there. I just needed an excuse. So going back to the actual like day I decided, I was walking my aunt's dog like randomly through Central Park, and I met my future vice president who recruited me to real estate. And I kind of just like told her the story, how I was like killing it doing software sales. It was just like, so like, you have the money saved up. Why don't you just start? I was like, wow, you're right. It was just a light bulb moment for me. Gave my 2 weeks notice the next day, and then went to go get my real estate license in New York State, and then haven't looked back since.
Dude, that is awesome. So, how long have you been in the business now in real estate?
4 years.
4 years.
So I'm still relatively new.
But
the momentum that I have.
Walk us through, how have you, so you literally made the decision to get into real estate, right? And you didn't even take your exam yet. You quit your job before you took your exam, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, I like to take big leaps of faith in myself. Okay. Big leaps of faith. And just knowing that I'll figure it out, right? But yeah, I quit without even having my real estate license. And so, I don't know, man. I just knew it was going to work out for me. And don't get me wrong, it was definitely difficult the first couple of years. Like I told you about the injuries. I want
to know more about. I want to know more about that. Like, how did you get it started? You quit. You go. You take this big leap of faith. How did you, and especially in the environment you're in, where everybody is coming out of the cracks to be a realtor at that point?
Yeah.
How did you start building that business?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you a little bit about the beginning of my career and how I kind of transitioned to where I'm at now. Well, I was very blessed to have met this person, not only that vice president, but the CEO of that company. It was called Platinum Property Group. Okay. Based out of, it was a European brokerage based out of Milan and Barcelona with kind of two headquarters, Milan and then New York City, right? So at that time, the euro was much stronger, and we had a ton of marketing campaigns out in Europe for international investors, Spaniards, Russians, Italians wanting to buy here, right? So preliminarily, the first year was a lot of rentals, because that's what I recommend for everyone trying to get in the real estate industry. You got to grind out on rentals for 2-3 years and learn that side of the business, because renters will always end up being buyers, right? At the end of the day, especially here in that price point, even if, somebody renting a $5,000 apartment per month is definitely going to be buying something at some point, right? So kind of trust the process, be patient with that. But there we were getting a good amount of leads once the euro was strong as well for buyers coming over. Okay. So I had a lot of exposure to all cash buyers, from Italy, a ton from Spain as well.
And were those leads that your company was able to generate for you, or did that require you to start like getting on the phone and making phone calls? Like, how did that work out for you there?
You know, like I said, I'm very grateful and blessed to have joined that particular company, because I didn't really get on the phones till recently.
Okay.
It's more of like, so far my business has really come from sphere of influence and social media.
That's awesome.
And all the video content I've been doing, and obviously the ads I've been putting out as well. So that's kind of how people get to know me, get to see my personality and how I am different and much more trustworthy than all the other real estate agents that you mentioned, right?
No,
because that's really what it boils down to. I have this trustable persona, I've been told, and hopefully you saw that when we met. But that really kind of sets me apart, right?
So walk us through, like, because I've noticed that same thing about you, not even hearing you say it, but that's the perception I got, is this likability factor. You seem like you can become best friends with people literally in an instant. Walk us through.
Like you and I did.
Yeah. How do you turn that, like, how did you turn that into your brand? What was that process for you? What did it look like? Especially because when you think of our audience right now that's listening to it, new agents are trying to build a brand for themselves. They're trying to figure out how they, are unique or different from all the other agents in their area. How did that process look for you? What made you find social media like you have? What did that look like?
Well, I'll start off with the name Dex in the City. So the brand has always really been there. It's just now been injected with steroids and put out on social media, right? So my passion has always been sort of touring people around New York, whether it's tourists, my friends from out of town coming in, or let's say these international buyers and renters that I was dealing with, because a lot of these people came to New York just knowing that they wanted to invest in New York, but having no idea what neighborhood, right? So I had to sort of be their like neighborhood guide, not only to what apartment or what building, but like what neighborhood, right? What grocery stores are there? What subway lines are there, what attractions are there, right? So when we would go on these tours, it wouldn't just be about like an apartment or a building that they were investing in. I had to literally take them around the entire neighborhood and around the entire city and sort of like give them a crash course on New York City. And then one of my buddies called me Dex in the City, and that's when the light bulb moment went off. I was like, wow, I need to just run with this. So I locked down everything, domain name, getting the trademark done now. Instagram handle, Twitter handle, the whole 9 yards. But I mean, Instagram, I've recently become more omnipresent, as per sort of the learnings that I had at the Disrupt Tour back in June. But Instagram was sort of always the bread and butter of like what I was going after, just because I feel like real estate in general is just such a picture and video oriented industry as well. And who doesn't like looking at like nice houses, of course?
No, I agree. I actually do that. Sometimes I get on Zillow and without the price filter and just literally let it go without the price filter, because it's entertaining to see kind of obviously these fancy houses and what they look like and everything like that.
Yeah, it's the dream. It's the fantasy. Yeah, it's picturing yourself there. Yeah.
And if you just start glancing at my profile, which obviously you guys have, like you could tell I'm absolutely obsessed with real estate and interior design.
Right.
Like there's no doubt about it.
So has Instagram translated to leads for you?
For sure. And I talked about this at Disrupt Tour. It's been the biggest driver of my business, actually. Not just before ads came out, like obviously that has been elevated since, but even before ads came out, like everybody knows what I do, my entire sphere of influence. And then from a personal networking standpoint, this is something I started back at the beginning of 2017. But rather than collecting people's business cards, I think that's sort of like a dying breed. Obviously, it's nice, whatever, if people don't have social media. But rather than getting their business card or their phone number or their email, the one thing that I always go after is getting somebody's Instagram when I'm networking with them. And that's regardless if I met them for 30 seconds or if I had dinner with them.
That's a golden nugget.
That is the golden nugget. That is the transformative factor of my career so far over the last 2 years, because they fall into what I call my ecosystem. And as you know, since you've been following me for almost a year now, you're going to see me every single day on the story touring a new property, right? And then from there, they associate real estate with my name. Yep. So that's really where it's came from. I don't necessarily want to say it's all like net new customers and people I've never met coming in through Instagram, but a lot of times it's people that I met, let's say a year ago, 2 years ago, they added me and they're in that ecosystem, and then the leads kind of generate from there and referrals from there as well.
So in that process of your Instagram, so could you walk us through like how you think about your posting? Because think about like a real estate agent that's listening to this right now, or even this would apply to an insurance agent or financial advisor. They're waking up today wondering, what should I post? How many times should I post? I mean, this is what I was literally talking to Andrea, who's sitting over there, about our social media. And it's like, I want to post now 4 times a day. I want to do this. Walk me through kind of your process of what are you posting on social media? How many days are you posting? How are you turning those relationships into referrals? Are you doing it through DM? Are you doing it through comments? Could you give me a little insight? I'm learning on this. Could you give me a little insight into that?
Wow, I wish I could post 4 times a day. That would be wild, man. I'm going to be seeing you a lot on my feed.
Yes, you are.
Once a day.
Okay.
Once a day. And if you need kind of guidance, and this is to the other agents listening into this and watching this, do what most other agents do, and you're more than welcome to log in and try and copy me, because a lot of people are trying to do that nowadays. But for me, I mean, a lot of times I'm not just posting necessarily my listings, because not a lot of people care about that. I'm always trying to brand myself, as you see, into the listings and into more of the lifestyle, videography, photography that I'm posting on a daily basis. It's not just about the space, and it's not always necessarily just about the 400K, 600K smaller apartments. Like, not many people want to see that. They typically want to see, and I get much more engagement on the ultra luxury posts that I do, right? Because everybody's looking at the dream house, stuff like that. To answer your question regarding how to engage, hands down, DM for sure. Whether it's engaging outbound or inbound, I'm getting a ton more organic engagement through Instagram stories, especially, rather than comments.
I would agree. And I would tell you that what I'm experiencing, I'm trying to figure this out for my sales guys right now. So you guys listening to this, is I am finding that every DM I send gets responded to. It's like every DM gets looked at and responded to. And you think about that. I just ranted about emails as I introed in this podcast. And you think about that comparison to email, and think about how many emails just go into the junk folder, where every DM right now is getting looked at and responded to.
And the sender can see if they've been seen or not.
Correct. Yeah, no, it's huge.
That's huge.
What about
with email? You can't do that.
Like, what about hashtags? Like, are you hashtagging? Like, what type of hashtags do you do? A bunch of hashtags? Do you not?
Yeah, always, every single post.
Okay.
Every single post. It's the first comment that I post right after the post. Obviously, hashtag Dex in the city. Go check that hashtag out. Actually, there's a recent imposter with that hashtag.
Oh, really?
It's a dog. It's a dog.
No way.
Some chick. Yes, go look at it. And it's like this ugly dog. I'm
That's
like, what are
awesome.
you doing?
You can't say
That's well, dude, you got to go find this dog and take a picture besides Dex and the city, beside Dex and the city.
It should be Rex and the city.
Rex in the city.
But look at the hashtag. It's ridiculous.
So what's been the biggest struggle for you as you look at your career, trying to build your brand, trying to break into this real estate market? What's been the biggest challenge?
Delegation, for sure, hands down. Right. I think I've sort of topped out what I can do as a single agent, and then this year is all about kind of building a team, building a support system around me. I haven't necessarily been the strongest at delegation, but it's something I'm working on for this year.
So it's literally, you've reached a point in your business where you can't do anymore because of the time effectively.
Yeah. And also the inquiries that are coming in from social media. Cause like I said before, I'm on everything now, omnipresent, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn alone, I'm going super hard on this year.
Okay.
Just the amount of messages. And then you couple an email, like going back to the first thing you said. So I'm pretty sure that my email is on an email list that's been sold, my Compass email, because I'm getting about 300 to 400 a day. And it's to the point now where I'm actually missing important lead email.
I'm telling you, yeah.
And not to say it's like a competition in terms of who's receiving more, but it's just been ridiculous. No, and it's elevated since 2019 started. So I'm starting to hate email, not going to lie.
Yeah. No, I think that's so true. I've been telling people all the time. It's like, I think, obviously email is a great return on investment, because the cost is obviously it's super cost effective. That's why you're getting 300 a day, because every marketer under the sun, ourselves included, is hitting the list. We're blasting a bunch of emails out. And it's still good return on investment, but it's really losing its luster when it comes to getting mind share.
It's not an effective communication method.
No, I'm reading subject lines, if that.
Right.
I'm reading subject lines,
That's why you're seeing LinkedIn and Instagram with the messages, direct messages, just overtaking that whole thing.
And Instagram Messenger too. And Facebook Messenger too. I like to take this is another little tidbit for all of the real estate agents that are listening to this. I like to take introductions or leads from email to either WhatsApp or iMessage immediately.
Oh, that's great.
Because then it's much more casual, and then you kind of build the trust quicker when you're texting somebody, and you obviously get quicker replies.
That's actually
I don't like to do email. Seems too formal and too distanced for me. So if it's like obviously if you haven't met the person, it's fine if you continue to email. But the second I meet them, I'm like, hey, is it okay if I text you? That's like the easiest way to get in touch with me. And then most times they'll say, yes, me too. And then from there, I'm sending them listings and I'm sending them information in order to meet up with them through text.
So when you look at this next year in the business for you, right, we're a little bit into 2019. One is, do you have a goal? And how have you gone about the process of really figuring out how you're going to hit that goal? Josh and I, one of the things we're huge on here is this idea of reverse engineering from your goal and figuring out what lead generation categories are going to get there or get you there. Could you walk us through, kind of how you've gone about that process, especially because you're in this phase of growth mode and you're trying to develop a team? And you make me think of my brother, because my brother's kind of similar to you. And we're going to interview him again here soon. But he's at the same point where it's just like he did 78 transactions last year. He literally is adding to his team. He's trying to hire an assistant. He's failed a couple times. But walk us through it. One, have you set a goal this year? And then how have you gone about the strategic planning process to help you hit that goal?
Set a goal every month, every year, of course. So the answer is yes. 700K GCI. It really just boils down to the amount of conversations, business-related conversations you're having, whether it's phone, text, DM, all these different types of things, and then time blocking in the morning with respect to that. And then from there, another goal of mine, because I know that this is going to be not necessarily short-term lead generation, but long-term. As you've been watching, I've been growing my influence as much as possible. So to put out as many vlogs as possible, a weekly vlog, once I get healthy again. Because obviously I can't walk around the city with a torn ACL. So that's kind of why I've been on. Yeah, it's been insane. But I'm close. I'm like slowly walking.
So I'm curious, you mentioned 700K GCI, okay? And you mentioned business conversations. So you're tracking yourself by business conversations. And how are you generating those? So one would be Instagram, I'm assuming, right? So you're
phone calls.
So phone calls is next. What are you calling? What does that look like?
Leads that are coming in. I just started doing expireds this year.
How do you like expireds? I got to ask. How do you like expireds?
Oh man, I'm great on the phones, bro.
Awesome.
I'm great. I love it.
Were you nervous first getting on the phones, or do you mind talking on phones at all?
Yeah. Everybody's.
No, I was going to say, because I consider myself a salesman, but I was the first time I got on the phones, I was pretty nervous. My hands were shaking the first credit card I got.
Yeah, exactly. You just gotta be comfortable in your own skin, and then they obviously sense confidence. But obviously, I'm relatively new to it. Like I said before, a lot of my business was coming from Sphere of Influence and just IG in general.
Gotcha. So for the phone calls you're making, you're doing expireds. How many calls are you trying to make a day with expireds?
40 conversations.
Okay, 40 conversations a day.
That's the goal.
Okay. And where are you getting most of your leads? Do you use any type of system to get your expired leads?
I don't know if I want to.
Oh, you don't have to share. Yeah, if you don't. It's the trade secrets, guys. I have to ask the hard questions.
Give all of them away.
I figured I'm trying to think through, obviously, the minds of our audience. I know they want to know, to help them go, hey, how many leads should I be calling? I actually say, you said expires. With FSBOs and expires, I've always encouraged people 50 leads is what they should really be, or 50 conversations. You're putting it in terms of conversations, which I actually like that term better. You should be working 50 of those people at any given time. And obviously they're going going to come and go through your pipeline. And so I know there's some, stuff out there like RedX and stuff like that can help you get those leads. But
that's one of them.
So you do Instagram, you're doing expired listings to help you get to that 700,000 GCI. Is there anything else that you would, point to go, all my new agents out there, this is really what's driven success? You talked about rentals in the beginning and how, in New York City, you got to hammer those rentals and grind it out there. Is there any other? And
you can make a ton of money on rentals, by the way, here.
Okay.
Because here you're getting 15% of the yearly rent is the commission, standard commission, or 1 month's rent if you're going to an owner pays building.
Gotcha.
So if you're doing an 8K rental, you take two people out twice and they end up moving on an apartment, you're making $8,000.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Like 2 visits.
Dude, that's
so
incredible.
I know a couple rental agents that are making $200,000-$300,000 a year.
That's amazing.
Obviously, it takes a lot of transactions, but yeah.
Right. No, that's incredible. So rentals being one. Any other lead generation categories?
Facebook and Instagram ads.
Okay, Facebook and Instagram
Hands
ads.
down. I'd say people getting in. My 2 biggest recommendations on that, like outside of what we just talked about, hire a videographer, full-time videographer. Once the budget gets there, hire a post-production editor, 2 separate people, not the same person, because that videographer is going to be running around with you a lot. And then invest the rest into Facebook and Instagram ads.
Dude, interesting. So you're telling people to invest right away in a videographer and somebody who can do the editing and production. So,
full-time videographer and a full-time post-production editor and a graphic designer. Hence why I've been able to put out as much content as I have. The vlog, all these bits of micro content, similar, like the podcast with Andy and Carter that you guys watched. Yep. I have like 20 pieces of micro content that I'll be posting over the next, 6 months.
Guys, that's another golden nugget. If you're listening to this, you should rewind that and listen to what he just said, because repurposing content, so many people, and we talk about this all the time, is so many people think you have to create new content all the time. No, you can take one piece of content like this right here, this podcast, you could split it up 100 different ways and repurpose it, reuse it, take clips. So think about that in your own day and what you're doing. You can repurpose your content not only on different social channels, but literally in different, just take 15 seconds of this video and chop it up. So that's a golden nugget right there that you gave.
I'm looking at this as 20 pieces of content.
I love it. Would you give any insight to your Facebook ads that you're doing right now, your Instagram ads?
Well,
what are that?
In general, well, my vlog obviously, but in general, you want to stick to video, because I think the statistic is video, they're 6 times more likely to click or convert on video. So I try to avoid pictures as much as possible. Don't get me wrong, though. Some kill it. Some people kill it on pictures. But I'm not putting your standard picture of, like, let's say a listing, like a living room, and expecting people to click. I started with that, but I was doing a lot of beta testing at the beginning, and they did not perform as well.
Do most of the ads you're running, are they listing video type ads, like to showcase your listing?
Incorporate myself into as many of them as possible.
That's actually a really good tip.
Because you are the brand.
Correct. Yes. No, you
as a real estate agent.
Love it.
You're not selling on those ads. You're not selling the property. You're selling yourself, because you're trying to lead generate other people who want to sell it. So you are the brand. That's the one thing that a lot of people get mixed up. There's no doubt about it that you are the brand.
Now, that is another huge tip. I'm actually going to tell my brother Steven that, because one of the things I was going to mention to people is that he films a really high quality video of all his listings, and he pays to do it. He doesn't put himself in it, and which is a mistake. I think that's a great tip. Yeah. And, I haven't told him to put himself in it, but I think, everybody listening to it, you should, because Dex is right. You are the brand, and that's the value. That's the business you're building. But what I was going to say is, he's invested in a videographer for his listings, not necessarily his personal life, which I think he should, in that really enhancing his brand and build a brand for himself. But his listing videos, though they don't get they get a lot of leads for the listing. More importantly, they make him look like $1 million, and it helps him close the next listing appointment. And it gets this whole, like you call it maybe ecosystem viralness, this buzz going about him, that this is a guy that has a super, super nice videos going every time. It like really creates that brand awareness. So just getting the videos going, like you're saying, just to create that almost viralness of you or this brand awareness of you, I think is huge.
Part of every single listing presentation that I do now, we actually just sat down at the beginning of the year and went through kind of our new pitch packet. But so I'm doing listing videos. I'm doing a listing video with me in it. The listing is obviously going to be featured in my blog. And then on top of that, I'm doing 3D virtual tours for every single listing above a certain price point. So I'm actually spending a ton of money on each listing, but no doubt that the exposure through video and virtual reality tours is unmatched with any other agent.
And if you own the listing, you ultimately own the leads because you have the product that people are looking for. And then I love the tip you gave. If you put yourself in the product, then they're really seeing you every time they're seeing the product they're searching for, which they get that brand, awareness, that mind share.
For sure. I mean, and sometimes if it's a studio, if it's a 525 square foot studio, how much of that actual listing video can they show of it? Right. So you need to like go on the actual video, create a story behind the apartment. Maybe there's some history behind the apartment, the building, the area, and you need to kind of explain that in the video.
I want to point out to the audience, that's the second time you've really hinted at the tip of becoming the local community expert. So, you talked about when you took the investors or they would come over, or the people from overseas would come over, you showed them the whole neighborhood. And right there in the listing video, it will show them the whole neighborhood.
And as a great example, just to plug your site, go to dexinthecity.com. You'll see, and I saw this earlier scrolling through your page, is just the overview of each of the neighborhoods. And then they each have an image that gives you the feeling that neighborhood gives you with a little bit of text. And when you click in, like it literally says, here's the neighbors. And it describes the neighbors that you'll be living with, what to expect, the lifestyle, what not to expect. And it's such a great breakdown of not just
That's awesome.
selling the property, but giving someone an idea of what the feeling is living in that area. Because like you said, a lot of people come here not knowing much about New York, other than they know they want to invest there, they know they want to live here. Now you can almost go to your site and say, like, I like that neighborhood. Take me there.
Yeah, and they're just so diverse, even though they're right next to each other in terms of who the neighbors are, who you're going to be living with, what types of restaurants you're going to be going to, what types of nightlife. Even though they're geographically so close together, it's pretty shocking how diverse they are.
And putting it into like the marketing jargon or whatever, you're really focusing on like the client experience versus just servicing the product. Talk a little bit about that.
I take my clients on vacation too.
I know. I'm applying for this trip to
no
Mexico.
way. Are you serious?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. No, there's a trip to Mexico.
I've taken clients to Croatia and Greece with me.
Really?
It's like, there's appreciation for sending referrals, stuff like that.
Dude, that's amazing. What else do you do?
You get to experience Dex in the city on a certain level. This neighborhood expert or this traveling expert on a certain level, depending on obviously how much business you're able to refer.
Do they have to sign like a non-disclosure type agreement before they go on vacation with you? Yeah, no.
Well, they better get ready to be filmed because now I'm filming everything, right?
Here you go, business expense, yeah.
No, I love that. Do you think one of the big struggles for people that hear about, Gary Vaynerchuk talking about you should be, documenting and filming yourself all the time. And then they see someone like you, they tell themselves, I don't live in New York City. I don't have an interesting life. I don't, the standard excuses we all give each other or give ourselves, I should say. What would you tell them? How does someone in I hate to pick on like Oklahoma, but how does an agent in Oklahoma, what do they document? What do they do? What would your suggestion be there?
Well, first and foremost, my first recommendation is just start and stop telling yourself that excuse. Because I was telling myself that excuse since like the beginning of 2017, right? It took me a year to start this process. And my buddy, the podcast that you watch with Andy Dane Carter, same thing. He had it in his mind that he was going to start the podcast a year before he actually did. It took him a year, conjure up the courage, right? And look, and then he's like top 10 iTunes.
Oh, dude, yeah, he's amazing.
Plug to Andy Dane Carter. You should go check out that podcast,
seriously,
especially the episode that I'm on. For sure.
I love it.
For sure. So the number one thing that people want to see now in terms of documentation is, because there's this large influx of new home buyers, go document a journey. And you should check out vlog 4 of mine, which was the highest performing vlog so far. And I got the most reaction to that one. It's a vlog sort of documenting the closing day and the joy associated with a first time home buyer closing on their property for the first time ever. And it's like, that's kind of the most fulfilling thing, man, as a real estate agent that I have always enjoyed about the entire industry. And for the first time ever, I kind of documented the entire process.
That's cool.
It just so happened to be one of my good friends who was obviously the buyer at the time.
No, I think that is such good advice. So let me ask you this then, Dex, is, when you look at your life and you're obviously have broken into one of the most competitive markets, you're successful, or you're not just in New York City, right? You are also, don't you work other places besides New York City? Am I thinking?
Yeah. So, we actually, this is the first time I'm announcing this.
Oh, boom. Secret announcement right here on Stay Paid. A drum roll.
We'll be launching in the middle of March, but I just signed an exclusive to be the exclusive USA broker and USA marketer to Mykonos Villas. We're going to be launching 36 villas in Mykonos, Greece this summer. Yeah, so that'll be awesome.
Dude, that's going to be incredible.
We'll be shooting some content.
If you need like a videographer, I can come carry the camera.
For the videographer.
For the videographer.
I might. My videographer might get a little bit pissed, but we'll see. We'll let you guys duel it out.
Dude, that's awesome.
And obviously, I do real estate in California as well. I don't necessarily sell as much there, but I do refer a ton of business out.
That's awesome.
Just because I do have a large sphere of influence out there. And then I have another business partner down in Miami. So that's why I spend a lot of time in Miami.
Gotcha.
Shooting a ton of content. Miami or Florida, I should say, and New York are very tied together in terms of real estate.
Yeah, that's what I was seeing, is that obviously you're out in Miami. I've seen you on your Instagram a lot doing some stuff there. So when you look at your business, look at your success, you're in some of the most competitive markets. What is your secret to success? Everybody's looking for the magic formula, right? And we know it doesn't exist. There's no magic formula out there, but you're successful. Are there habits or is there a routine that you've done every single day that's driven success for you?
It really changed when I started meditating a year ago.
Okay.
Actually, in the mornings. We're talking about habit, right? So that's the one habit that sort of changed my life. Beginning of last year, meditation, 5 minutes of visualization, and then 5 minutes of extreme gratitude in the early morning. And then from there, you can't really experience anger or anxiety because gratitude is just overwhelming. So that's sort of how I start my days. And then it's hitting the pool when I'm healthy, when I don't have a torn ACL. Hitting the pool, and getting my laps in, because like I said before, you will not pay me to get on a basketball court. And then from there, I always try and make my first business routine exercise to be some sort of outbound lead generation technique. So lately it's been obviously making phone calls. But I try not to have it be anything reactive, meaning answering other people's inquiries, answering other people's texts until about like 11 a.m. Right? Because when you start the day in a reactive mindset, then the day sort of blows up on you in that way.
No, I love that.
That's kind of been the turn. And I'm in my first couple of years in the business, it was starting a reactive mindset. Right. So that's kind of been the turning point. So I wanted to give you guys that.
It's amazing. And just hearing you say that, I'll point out to the audience, notice how he didn't say the key was understanding the market or the key was understanding contract negotiation or something like that. All those technical skills that we tend to obsess over, it really is the key is to get into a state where you're in control and you have a mindset of, where you're not in a reactive mode, you're in a proactive mode. And I've heard that multiple times from different successful people is this mindset of gratitude, this mindset of I think, it might have been Andy Dane Carter who said on our podcast, he doesn't look at his phone for the first half hour or whatever of the day. He immediately does things for him. And it's just setting your mind right. Everything else can handle itself. The technical stuff, you'll figure that stuff out. If you need to, you'll figure it out.
I try not to look at my phone for an hour, but today it was only half an hour.
Yeah. I have to self-admit, I grab my phone instantly. I've been thinking about that lately, though, so maybe this is the podcast to finally put me over the edge and say, stop doing that. I literally turn my alarm off and pull my phone up. It's terrible.
It'll change your life. So I put my phone in the bathroom.
That's not a bad idea. So you don't use the alarm on your phone, or do you? Do you use the alarm?
I do, but I also use Alexa.
Oh, gotcha.
It's changed to Alexa. Yeah. So
nice.
So it makes me get up to turn it off. But yeah, for sure.
Awesome. So last question for you, man, and this one's a deep one. So you're gonna have to go into the deepest parts of your soul to answer this one. Is knowing what you know now, you're 4 years in. What would you go back and tell younger Dex? What would you tell that guy and say, hey, invest in this more, don't invest in this? What advice would you give him?
Once the second you get into real estate, that's what I would tell younger Dex, because he was scared. Obviously, you have to have that specific confidence when you're on the phones, but for the first couple of years in the biz, wasn't on the phones, kind of expecting leads to come in, rather than, like you said, I was very reactive rather than proactive in terms of getting the leads. So, we would be having a much different conversation if, younger Dex was doing that from day one in real estate. But, at the end of the day, I didn't really have mentors like I do now. So that's another thing. Get a mentor once you get into the industry, because I didn't really have anybody tell me that until my third year in the biz. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's another thing I highly recommend to other real estate agents. Get a mentor who's been in the business for 20, 25 years and just sort of have them guide you throughout.
That's awesome.
No, I would agree 100%.
It's a great story, man. Thanks for sharing that. And thank you for being here. Before we close, let everyone know how they can connect with you.
Dex and the City _ across all social media platforms on Instagram, Dex and the City _ YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. My email is dex@dexinthecity.com. My website is www.dexinthecity.com. My phone number, feel free to call or text me, is 949-690-9325.
Awesome, man.
Thanks guys. Thanks so much for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh, it's been awesome, man.
Thank you so much for listening. If you liked what you heard today here on Stay Paid, please go on iTunes, give us a 5-star rating, and make sure to leave a comment. You can also find our podcast, including this one, in video on youtube.com/ReminderMedia or staypaidpodcast.com. Make sure to tell someone else about the podcast today. It really helps us spread the word. And if you'd like to get hold of me or Luke, please email us at podcast@remindermedia.com or find us on Instagram or LinkedIn. And of course, you can check out Reminder Media on social media. We are at Reminder Media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest. For this episode of Stay Paid, I'm Joshua Stike.
And I'm Luke Acree. Guys, I'm going to close with this action item. So, obviously every Stay Paid episode, we want to give you a tangible action item that you execute on this week to help you change your business. There's so many golden nuggets that Dex shared, but what I thought was one of the most critical ones or most important one was the idea that you are the company. It's your brand that matters. And that simple tweak of putting you in your listing marketing, I think was such a golden nugget. It's one that I'm going to share with my brother. I'm going to share with the agents that I coach, is that you're already promoting that listing this week. You're already promoting that insurance product. You're already promoting that financial product. Whatever it is your product is, place you in it. Put yourself as part of it to build your brand. So when people are thinking real estate, like Dex said, if you're in real estate, they think of you. And I think so often we focus on servicing the product, but we don't focus on building our brand. So I thought that was an incredible action item that you could take away from this podcast. Remember, the difference between a top producer or a mediocre producer in any industry. Josh is laughing because I almost stumbled in saying my closing line. But guys, the difference between a top producer or mediocre producer in any industry is top producers take action. So take action on that today.